Hello, readers. My name is Brooke. I'm here with one of my readers, Ariel. She is going to be asking a couple questions about the series Ace Bad Things. So go ahead.
You ready?
Yep,
Okay.
I'm ready.
How did you come up with all of your characters?
So, my characters were kind of hit and miss. The idea of Ace was centered around tattoos and intimidation. And I was on Google looking for characters. I came across Ace, which is actually Stephen James, and he fit the character very well. He was pretty much exactly what I had in my head. And I didn't realize at the time how popular Stephen James actually is on Wattpad. As for the rest of them, they pretty much all looked Hispanic, and that's the way I meant them to. The girls, not so much, but I meant it to be that way, so.
How did you come up with the plots for your stories?
So I wanted the whole book to basically be around the Latin Kings. The Latin Kings aren't actually like this in real life. In this book, it's kind of a little more royalty and by heritage, and to my knowledge, it's not actually that way. Most of the twists kind of came as I wrote the book. I would just wind up with a good idea, and I'd just come up with them at different times. I always knew Carlos would exist. I always knew that Carlos was actually Arya's dad. That was an idea from the very beginning of the book. So,
Why did you write the Spanish the way you did?
so there's been a big problem with the Spanish. I am Caucasian. I did not take Spanish in high school. I know little to no Spanish. But I thought it would be good for the book. It felt more realistic, or kind of wanted it part of their personality to be able to speak Spanish. So I used Google Translate for the Spanish. And a lot of it is inaccurate. And a lot of people have been on there correcting the Spanish, which I really don't understand very good. I still, am trying to figure out the patterns in Spanish language, and I don't know it very well. I will probably never correct the Spanish in there unless I find somebody who can actually go and edit the book and know the language, because I don't.
I know you had a lot of problems with people criticizing small little errors and trying to correct you, but why didn't you go and correct all of the mistakes?
So the mistakes were made when I wrote the book. I wrote the chapter within an hour. So I did have some grammar and spelling errors, and I apologize for that. But I have not been back to re-edit the book. I'm not an editor. I could fix some of the small errors. I guess I didn't see much of a point, because clearly you guys knew what I was talking about. You were the ones who pointed out the mistakes. So obviously you knew what I originally meant for it to say. I probably will eventually go back and try to re-edit some of it, fix some of the mistakes, but it's not going to be perfect unless I get an actual editor, so.
And how come you started your chapters the way you did? Like, how did you do that? Or how did you come up with that?
Well, the idea was for Arya to have to move to California. So I had to come up for a reason that she was to get expelled. And I wanted her to be treated badly in life. Because I wanted her to find something much different in California than what she had out in Nevada. Her parents were abusive. She was bullied in school. And so I created Amara for her to have have a fight with for being bullied so much. She finally stood up for herself. She got expelled. A lot of people say that the expulsion thing is a problem because their schools would not expel them for fighting the first offense. But there are some schools out there who do fight or who do expel you for your first fight. I do know that because I've gone to one. So,
Why did you make Kimmy the way she was? I honestly never liked her.
so Kimmy is a little bit of a press. She's kind of a drama queen, very opinionated. I felt like Arya needed that. I think Arya needed somebody who was kind of pushy and outgoing because Arya was shy at first and very reserved, and Kimmy was all about going to the mall and hanging out with friends and boys and boys and boys. Well, I feel like Arya needed that character. She needed that push. She needed someone who was close to her to kind of find out more of who she was.
Right, to make things more normal.
Right. She needed that pushy person to get her to go out and explore things that she didn't know about, because she was within such a strict household out in Nevada. She had no friends. Her family treated her like crap. She needed somebody like Kimmy, really.
Okay. Why all the tongue? Well, why the tongue piercing and the tattoos?
So the tattoos, as far as Ace go, like I said, that was the idea for him. That was meant to be. I think most people find people who have piercing, tattoos, etc., intimidating a lot of times, and that's the way I wanted Ace to look. Well, then Arya later on got tattoos. Um, One for Angel, one for Ace that I have mentioned. Um, I think she just kind of had that in her the whole time. She loved Ace, she loved Angel, she wanted a tattoo for them. For the tongue piercing, it did bother a lot of people that she got a tongue piercing, that she had agreed to it, and she's kind of like, sure, why not? Because her cousin thought it was a good idea, it was kind of cool, and she wanted to prove to her cousin that she wasn't scared to have these things, that she could act like a normal female teenager.
Yeah.
And tongue rings, they were a popular thing back in the earlier 2000s, guys. I'm not saying it's still like that now. So sorry if the tongue ring thing offended you, but I mean, it's part of the story, and I'm gonna leave it in there. So.
Speaking of offensive, I know that there's a big uproar about when Arya drank wine. Why did you think it was acceptable?
Where I come from, guys, wine is not a big deal to drink when you're pregnant. There's not a lot of alcohol content in it. Actually, doctors in my area, they don't frown upon it, even. I drank wine once when I was pregnant with my twins. I believe I drank wine one time when I was pregnant with my oldest. Um, it's not really that big of a deal if it's one glass, guys. I'm not permitting you to go off and drink Fireball and a whole bottle of wine to yourself while you're several months pregnant, or even early on in your pregnancy. But one glass of wine is actually not a health problem to the baby or the pregnant woman. She had one glass, you guys. It was to calm her nerves, and it's actually not that big of a deal. I mean, others would not agree with that, but that's my opinion. That's how I was always taught. So,
How did you come up with the plot twist with Carlos and Jim?
so I didn't know I was going to kill Carlos at the end of the book, but I needed something at the end of the book. I wanted to twist it. I didn't want you to see it coming. Even when Gabriel, to find out that he had something to do with it, I wanted you guys to be surprised, but I also didn't want to use a character like Lewis, or Austin. Um, I wanted the betrayal to be there. I wanted the shock to be there, but I didn't want to use like a major character like Benny and Gabriel kind of fit the thing. So I used him to kill Carlos, who was actually his brother Charles, but they did not know that at the time, being that Charles was Carlos's identical twin. And you do not, I guess, find that out until Arya the Chair. So.
Yeah, and what about Jim?
And as for Jim, you know, when I did it in my head, really, I knew that Ace tampered with the car, which you do find out in Arya Bad Things if you read the Mirror book. It does explain how Ace chose to kill Jim. Ace did not stick around to make sure Jim was dead. So Ace kind of screwed up. And that's how I was able to bring Jim back. So he had staged what was supposed to look like a car accident. The only thing is Jim made it out alive, and he faked his own death, and the family believed he had burnt to death because the car exploded, guys. So they figured his remains were nothing but ash. And it happens. I mean, I don't know, I watch a lot of mysteries, so I can do some weird things. And also, a lot of people, they're like, why is everyone coming back from the dead? It's so creepy. I'm like big on Stephen King and weird things that I love bringing people back from the dead. I think it's funny and kind of very plot twisting. You're like, oh, that person's dead. No, they're not. They're not. They're really not.
What inspired your music choices?
So the book was based out in California. Guys, I don't listen to a lot of hip hop or rap. You may be able to tell that from my music choice. The book was mostly based around the song Bad Things by Machine Gun Kelly and Camila Cabello. But I did use a lot of hip hop and rap because it seemed more suited to the book. So if you catch like some rock songs in there, that's actually mostly what I listen to. But I always try to fit the song to the chapter. So if you listen to the song while reading the chapter may make more sense, or it seems well placed, I think. So.
Why didn't you make Ace one long book? Like the whole series. Why didn't you make it one big book?
So, the first book was pretty long. It was about 50 chapters. The second book was somewhere around 40. The next two books were about 30 apiece, I believe. It would have been, okay, I guess to write one big book. I've noticed a lot of people on Wattpad write 50 to 80 chapters. I guess I just wanted them in separate, books. If I ever chose to go back, re-edit them, publish them and sell them, or, something like that. And if I ever do that, I will probably make quite a bit of changes to the books, too.
Why did you kill Ace?
A lot of people were mad at me about that. They're like, why? I know. I'm sorry. My dad and I watched a lot of movies growing up. He always taught me that not everything has a happy ending, and not everything does in life. I mean, a lot of good movies, a lot of good books. I'll use Gran Torino, for instance. I don't know if you guys seen it.
That's good.
It has Clint Eastwood. Spoiler alert. Mute it if you must. In Gran Torino, Clint Eastwood dies at the end of the movie. It didn't make it a bad movie, you guys. It was a great movie.
Yeah, it was.
So, I mean, to kill off a character, it is difficult. And I didn't want to kill Ace, you guys, but I had to twist the end of it somehow because I love twisting the end of the book. I do it in just about all my books. But that's why I wound up writing Finding Ace, so I could bring him back, because you guys were mad that I killed him. Honestly,
I haven't read it yet.
I've honestly killed my characters 1,000 different ways in my head. You know, I think there's something kind of poetic, might be a little darkly poetic, disturbingly poetic, about killing off a character at the end of the book. I think that it kind of is cool. That's terrible to say, but you guys, it happens in a lot of books. You read Ellen Hopkins, Stephen King, they do kill off characters in the books. Mm-hmm. One of these days, that's probably going to happen, and I'm not going to change it next time. So just be warned, if you read any of my other books, you might lose a main character. I do that sometimes.
Why did you put religion and the expulsion into the book?
So there's a lot of controversy on the religion. You guys don't know anything about Mormons. I am not religious. I did want Arya's parents to seem like bad people, and I'm going to tell you right now that not all religious people are good. There are religious people out there who could be sexually abusive, mentally abusive, physically abusive, and I know it for a fact that it does happen. They preach about how wrong it is to drink or to swear when they're like molesting little kids or something. You guys, that's the world we live in. It does happen. Swearing doesn't make you a bad person. Religion does not make you a good one. So,
and the expulsion.
The expulsion, people were, a lot of people were like, well, why did she get expelled? Or, for the very first fight. It does happen in some schools, not all. So I wanted her to get expelled, so she would have to move to California with her aunt, because that's how the whole book was going to start. She wasn't supposed to know anything about Ace or Lewis or what they were doing. And I mean, that is why I expelled her. And I do know that some schools will expel you on the first offense of fighting. Not all, and I'm not saying that, but some do. So.
Well, looks like that's all we have for today.
Oh, that's a wrap, guys.